Hey everybody, welcome to Highly Unlikely with Josh and Jenaye and extremely special guest today, our friend Levi Lusko. So glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Levi is a pastor of Fresh Life Church in Montana and Wyoming and Utah.
That's right.
And any others?
Idaho
Idaho
and Oregon.
and Oregon.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
all over. But
And the internet.
And the
These
internet.
days, it's like, and YouTube. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
And Levi is also like an amazing author and has written some awesome books that we're kind of going to talk about today. Some of the topics are going to come
Yeah.
out of like stuff that you've written, but beyond like his books, like The Last Supper on the Moon, tell us about your family.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. You guys are fantastic. And I'm so glad to be in North Dakota.
Yeah.
It's never been done.
First
First
time.
time.
I'm
Come
so
on.
excited.
So honored.
I've only been to the Lesser Dakota. So now finally, I've been seeing the advertisements all over the Minneapolis airport for years.
Oh, yeah.
No, really, I'm honest. In all honesty, very excited. I've been looking forward to this trip, and yeah, my family wishes they could be here, but we'll come back.
Yeah.
Got to go to Medora. They are in the midst of craziness with school right now.
Yeah.
Our first day of school is yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And so my wife was sending me all these pictures and videos. So I got to pray with the kids the night before I flew out. And so it's everything. It's fun. And
Yeah.
my wife, Jenny, which I feel like there's a little bit of like simpatico with you and her.
Yes, yeah.
I joke. When I ever talk about her from the stage, I usually use my Forrest Gump voice and say Jenaye. So it is a
You
little,
get Jenaye.
and that's your actual name, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
What are the chances?
So good. And then, Daisy, Clover, Lennox, Olivia, and Linya. We got 5, so everything's madness, in
Yeah.
other words. But-
Seriously. Got to have high capacity to have that many kids.
or cold winters, one of the two.
Right.
You know.
That, yes.
To make it
Which-
through all of it.
You get to endure both. Well, we like to start off the podcast with just a fun question from the bowl. So, and you like spontaneity and fun.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
this is a good question.
And this is good coffee, by the way.
Hey,
Oh,
Shout out Logan.
Shout out to Joy House, man.
And to Guatemala.
thank you, Guatemala.
This episode is sponsored by the nation of Guatemala. Guatemala does not necessarily condone or support anything that is said.
I'm glad he covered
The
it.
fine print. I just got,
Yes.
keep the lawyers happy.
Yeah, keep your bases covered.
Okay, who is, and you all can answer, but who is your role model?
Whew.
I actually had this question. Like,
You
in the
did. I know. I
script
was like, it
of,
worked
who
out
you
great.
look up
Do you
to.
want to do a different question from the bowl?
I
then?
mean,
No, it just
let's do it
two
later
birds,
on.
one
Let's do it
stone.
later
Let's
on when we
save
get
it.
to
We'll
it.
save it.
Okay.
Grab a new one. Grab
Gives
a
me
new
the
one.
chance to
First
think about it.
time
Yeah, right.
ever.
Spoiler alert. Wow, we're just
Spoiler alert.
vetoing the bowl.
Oh, what are you reading right now?
Very good question. I'm always in an Audible, a physical book, a paperback book, and then usually I keep like a book by my bedside. So when I wake up at 4 a.m., instead of getting my phone, I'll read a book. So I've got a 1,000-page
amazing.
Winston Churchill book because I find I go to sleep faster
Yep.
if I'm reading versus on a screen.
Yeah.
So I've got a Churchill that I'm in my nighttime read, and I'm kind of crawling my way through that one, which has been amazing. And just have gotten to where he's in his first. He's running the Admiralty position of the Navy right now. And then I'm reading a book on President Grant just because I knew nothing about him. And I'm at the end of the Civil War. I'm kind of dreading because I know Lincoln's death is coming and their friendship kind of is just building. And then I'm also reading a novel. I don't know if you've seen the new show with Chris Pratt on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Well, I've seen about it. Haven't seen it.
Okay. It's not necessarily condoned or supported.
It's all good.
Very violent, Navy SEAL-ish. I'm reading a book by the author of that series, and it's
wow.
the postquel. Or what's the one afterwards? Not prequel.
Sequel?
Sequel. Thank you. That's exactly the
Yeah,
word we're looking
it is.
for.
Postquel.
We found the word. Postquel.
Could be a new word.
That's the word now. Sequel. And it is great. It's just super like Navy SEAL, killing, all those sorts of lovely
Exciting
violent
things.
themes. And then on Audible, I'm listening to a book on the Rockefeller dynasty. So that's the reading right now.
That is amazing.
What are you guys reading?
Wait, how many books do you read in a month?
I don't know if there's like a quota because like some of those
Well,
they're
like
1,000 pages.
yeah,
I'm just always
estimation.
going through them. So one will finish, next one will start. I'll have another one kind of going.
You
But
just
then
love to learn.
I love learning.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I
Love
it, I love
history.
It, I love it. Love history.
Right. It's kind of your go-to.
I love history, but I also love fiction and I love spiritual
Yeah.
books. I love books like by
Right.
pastors and I love
Right.
self-help books and business books. And it's just, life is so short. I actually get sad thinking sometimes about how, like, every time I go to a bookshop, I'm just overwhelmed. Because I'm like, I'm going to die and I have read all these books. And that just makes me sad. I was running across the Brooklyn Bridge the other day. And while I was running, I was thinking about how sad I am that David McCullough, who wrote the definitive book on the Brooklyn Bridge, is dead. And there's not going to be any more McCullough books. And there's only 2 that he's written that I haven't read. And when I finish one of those, there's no more. That's
It's a great
thing.
perspective.
Yeah.
Really great perspective. What are you reading?
Well, I think you should answer because you're going to make this conversation so much more interesting
I
with,
knew you were
with your
going to go there.
response.
Okay, so I'm a listener
Okay.
in the season of little kids. My Bible, we make the joke, it started in like Genesis 23 because the first bit was ripped out by our children. So I got a new
Wow.
one.
So the whole creation week is just,
It's just,
don't
you
have
know,
any
but good
context for
thing
it.
that's where most people just
23.
start.
What is Genesis 23?
I have zero idea.
It's like, it's post-Tower of Babel. That's like right after Abraham and Isaac.
It's like, and but every
Gosh, so
page
you're so
just
confused
kept-
anytime someone references like Sodom and Gomorrah or like Noah. You're like, what? Who
I
did what?
So I really love Libby. Have you heard of Libby?
The city of Montana?
No, Libby, the app.
Never heard
The
of
Libby
it.
app. So you can access books, Audible books through your local library card. So with my library card, I just listen to Audible books and read some books
For free.
for free through your, yes. It's like
Shocking.
game changer. So if you don't like it,
they
you just
show
return
up in
it.
your Audible account?
No,
No,
it's
just through
the
Libby.
Libby app, and then you can like get on wait lists. You have your bookshelf, like
See,
what
but
you're
I don't
waiting
like wait
for.
lists, so I'm like, just give it to me on Audible.
And I
Yeah.
like free.
Well, if you have
Yeah.
the Amazon membership, do you do Prime?
Yeah, then you
Yeah.
get credits,
You
right?
get credits, right?
Yeah,
Is
he
that not
uses
enough?
all the credits.
But the
Okay.
more she does Libby, the more credits I get.
Excellent.
Yeah. So okay. So
Free
yes,
trial.
I am. I
Decrease so
am
you
gonna
can-
make it
Yes.
interesting.
That's how a good marriage works.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I am gonna make this interesting, like you said, because the one that I'm currently reading is called The Great Sex Rescue.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but
know.
the guest that we had on earlier in season 1, Jay Stringer, he had been on a podcast with Jen Hatmaker and had talked about, hey, these are my top recommendations for really just breaking down how, like in evangelicalism and the purity culture, how it's impacted sex and marriages today. And I mean, the stories are heartbreaking, and but also like find hope in like, hey, this is God's will for like the respect and love for one another and the appropriate place of sex in the marriage and how it should give life to both people. I'm like so honest and transparent, even with our church. What did I say earlier this year? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're having better sex than all of you guys.
Okay.
But that,
Congratulations.
yes,
Thank you.
but just the
I don't know how you
conversation
measure
of,
that.
Yeah,
necessarily.
And Josh
what's the
still-
yardstick for that
You're
kind of
right.
measurement, right?
but just I think that's how we all should view our relationship with our spouse. Everyone should think that. You should look and say, no, we have the best because this is what we have is the best between us. And Josh is blushing.
Am I blushing? Here, go ahead.
No, not necessarily.
I can't
I'm
tell
also
against the pigeon paint.
Good. That's why we
I
did
know.
pigeon.
Yeah, you can't
yeah,
tell.
it's just beautiful.
It hides
so
it very well.
That one is very
A
interesting.
great
Again,
sex rescue.
the Great Sex Rescue. But also, I just started listening to. I also love learning about cults. I think they're so interesting, and just the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Scientology is one that just mind blowing.
bit freaky,
so
right?
Going Clear by Lawrence Wright. I just started that one.
Did you ever see that David Koresh documentary miniseries they did, docudrama about Waco? It was called Waco.
Yes.
I
That
probably
was
saw
I have
bits of it
seen-
while she watched it.
yes, I have
That
seen that
was
one. I've maybe watched
shocking.
it twice. I went to
twice.
Magnolia,
You must really
but
like
I
it.
was thinking about the Branch Davidian.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it was just like, oh, I'd like
That's
to go
the
see
stuff
that.
that she'll binge.
yeah,
is
poor
like
Chip and
documentaries.
Joanna. They've had to deal with that baggage for
Yeah,
years.
come
Yeah,
on.
they've redeemed that place in
They really-
so
you know what
many
they
ways.
really have.
Been
Really
waiting for a
though.
new
So
name.
did David Crowder. He's from Waco.
Is he
I
from
think.
Waco?
I did not know that.
Baylor, that whole kind of area.
I
Very
suppose.
close, yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know he's from there.
Yeah.
He's
So I have a
University
lot
Baptist
on my.
Church. That's where that church got started.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Baylor.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that super close, Baylor and Waco?
Yeah, it's in Waco.
Okay.
It is in
We
Waco.
saw Baylor when
yes,
we were
it
there,
is.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
it's in there.
then yes.
Yeah. And then my last one that I was next is The Color of Compromise, the truth about how the American church's complicity in racism.
Is that
Haven't
Jamar
read it yet, so
Tisby?
don't judge me on it.
Is that
What?
Jamar Tisby?
Maybe. I didn't read. I think that is who it is. Yes. Jamar Tisby. Yeah. So just like to read different books and different genres.
That is
listen.
Interesting
far-ranging.
topics.
Very.
Okay. And what are you in?
I am a little stuck in the present moment. Because I started a book that's 17 hours, another book that's 26 hours, and another book that's 37, and I'm about an hour into all of them.
You just need to keep chipping away at it.
So I don't even know if that counts. But one is probably one that you maybe gave to my friend David. I saw him reading it, our friend, but The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh, it's a
Is
great
that a
book.
you recommendation maybe?
Probably.
And then another one is Battle Cry of Freedom by James McPherson.
I do have a severe crush on Teddy Roosevelt. So,
yes.
is what it is.
Right. That's how we're luring you back.
We don't talk
with
to my wife
Medora.
about it. Yeah. She knows if I'm with Teddy, don't even knock,
Yeah, right.
What's the second one?
Battle Cry of Freedom by James McPherson. It's because I went to DC this year and the Civil War kind of was
it
like,
popped. I've never
I
heard of
wanted
that.
to read
What
about it.
what aspect of the Civil War is that
He's
about?
giving like the buildup of like what was happening culturally and in society that led to it, really. What were people disgruntled about and what was happening. So, but again, I just started it. So
what you're an hour into each. How do you choose when you listen to each of them? Is it when you're running?
I
in the
feel like
gym?
a book has like, you get into the first little bit where you're kind of like, am I going to read this whole book? And then sometimes you have to persevere.
Yeah.
And then you reach a point of like, I'm either going to finish this or I'm not.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still kind of there with all these, like
You haven't decided.
I
An
haven't
hour in.
decided.
What speed do you listen to them at?
1.5.
1.5. And when do you listen to books?
When I drive.
When you drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much,
With
or
no
a
kid,
podcast. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. With no
kids.
kids.
Yeah, the kids aren't going to
Coco
tolerate
Melon
that.
podcast.
They're not going to tolerate that. They
No.
want Baby Shark on.
Right. Exactly.
But I'm like you, if I can't sleep, then I put a book
Throw
on.
a butt in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you put on a 37-hour book about history, then you're likely to fall asleep. At some point.
Cardiovascular activities are the perfect time for that too.
To listen.
Dishes too. If you're doing dishes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like great
Yeah.
book time. But I took up uphill skinning this year, which is skiing up the mountain and then you ski down, and that's phenomenal
The best.
audiobook time
Yeah.
because you just have
How do
this
you
like
ski up a mountain?
you put skins under your skis, and then you have
Interesting.
bindings.
So is it
that-
called skinning or skiing?
Skinning.
It's called
Skinning.
skinning.
Yeah, you literally put a skin. It looks like a cat's tongue. You know how cats' tongues are smooth one way, rough the other way? So this like that.
Interesting.
So when you put the skin on your skis, your heels don't connect. So you can lift your foot up and it slides through the snow one way and then stops. And then you do your other foot.
That
and you
is
just go
so
up
interesting.
the mountain and you're dumping sweat because
Yeah.
it's 30 degrees outside, but you're going up the mountain. So you wear pants that unzip in the all the way down in this mesh, so you can just release that heat. And then at the top you call it transitioning. You take the skins off, and my skis turn into a snowboard. They click together, and then my bindings turn
What?
sideways, and then I
No
snowboard
way.
down. And you get to do it before and after the mountain's properly open. And then all throughout the year, you get to just not ride the chairlift, do that
Yeah.
once, and then you burn like 1,000 calories. So it's
That
pretty
is
cool.
so interesting.
Levi, how do you write great books, preach all over, have a healthy family, and have time to go skinning?
Well,
How do you make
great
that
question.
all work together?
Yeah.
you get 24 hours, and you just got to use it, right? So you just you prioritize sleep. So the Hebrew calendar viewed the day beginning at bedtime, right? That's when the day began. So Sabbath began when the sun set.
Yeah.
So if you think about like, okay, when the sun sets, now I begin a 24-hour period. And how you choose to begin it is with sleep, right? Most of us.
Yeah.
So I'm sleeping. Now I wake up. I've already rested for the first part of the day. So now I'm beginning my day out of rest, and I'm prioritizing from there. Time with Jesus, time for my soul, time for my
Yeah.
body. And then I would say doing something for creative work. So if I'm going to write a sermon, if I'm going to write a chapter of a book, if I'm going to do something like that, that would be then. So by 9 a.m., if I get up at 5:30 and I've had time to connect with Jesus, if I've had time to do something for my body, skinning, or running or playing a tennis game or lifting weights, which I haven't done in 4 weeks because I cracked a rib a month ago. So I've been off the weights. And then I do something for creativity. Now by 9 a.m., when the post office opens, when business
Right.
hours open, when people start texting and calling, when people expect you to be able to perform in your career, you've already done something for yourself, for your soul, and for your creative pursuit.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a big thing, is just viewing the day differently. A lot of people try and put most of their important things into the part of the day that's the most busy. When you have to run by the post office, do stuff for
Yeah.
the taxes, do the
Right.
carpool. But 9 to 5 is my least important time. I don't mean that. I just
Yeah, yeah.
view
Yeah.
after 5 o'clock, time for family. date night every Thursday with my wife if I'm in town. If not, we get a mulligan. But and then in the afternoons that's meetings and whatnot. But I'm never going to give that space of time to what's the most significant, which for me and you is writing talks, writing books, that kind of stuff. So
Wow,
That's so
that's
good.
great. That's a great question.
So speaking of the book, I know The Last Supper on the Moon came out. You could take that title a few different ways, like Your Last Supper on the Moon. Did Jesus have a Last Supper on the moon?
it's full of questions.
It
Isn't it?
came out
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
And can you, tell us what it's about, what inspired it? I've been following you enough to know, you're connected to astronauts. And
I do like astronauts.
Yeah.
Have you got this in your Libby yet?
No, I should search for it.
You should.
And let's see, because some things they don't have on Libby.
Except I don't think I get a royalty off Libby. I'm just.
It's probably reserved out so far.
Oh, yeah,
that
It
right.
you
probably
can't
is. There's
even
some
They're
that's
like,
get a
actually, they're all
hold of it.
being sent back. No one wants it. No, the book. Thank you for the kind words. The book started on my balcony. A friend of mine does EDM dance tracks as a side hustle. His actual day job is he runs a fashion house, and he was telling me about a communion service that happened on the moon. And I was like, wait, what? Because he goes, this track was inspired by the communion service that happened in the Apollo mission on the moon. I was like, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, Buzz Aldrin took communion to the moon and took communion on the lunar surface. And I go, that's fantastic if it's true. That sounds absolutely not true, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. Yes.
I was like, oh, well, George Washington was baptized in the Potomac. It's like, wait, how have I never heard this? I've been kind of loosely excited about space for a bit. So I Google it, and indeed it's true. They didn't advertise it widely in 1969 because of Madeleine Murray O'Hair. She was a famed atheist, of course, as you know, and she sued NASA after the Apollo 8 mission in 1968 because they read portions from Genesis 1. I'll tell you about it later. During the broadcast, where it was Christmas time, and they read in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. They read all of that section of creation, and it was broadcast to 500 million people who were listening on the radio, and they signed off with, and so we wish you a Merry Christmas and God bless all of you on that good earth. And it was, chills. No one knew they were going to do it, and of course it was their personal remarks, so it was fine. Well, she alleged that it was a separation of church and state issue. So she sued NASA. She lost the case. They threw it out. And so when Apollo 11 came along, the head of the astronaut office, Buzz Aldrin, told him, hey, I want to bring communion elements. We're allowed to all bring something personal. I want to bring wine and bread and take communion as a way to honor the significance of the moment. He had heard that Christopher Columbus had done that when he discovered the New World.
Wow.
And so that was his kind of like, well, this is a new literal world, not just a new continent. So he was told, you can do that. It's your choice, but just don't talk about it on the radio. We don't need another, big stir.
Yeah.
So Buzz quietly took communion after reading from John's gospel, and no one on earth knew it happened.
Wow.
And they sort of kept it just low key. And so finding out about that, I was like, oof, Last Supper on the moon. And just like you said, the levels in which it rings out is what I'm always looking for. I like pregnant language. The Last Supper on the moon was actually the beginning. It wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of everything. The first thing eaten was the Last Supper. It's just so poetic and wonderful. So I wrote down on my phone, The Last Supper on the Moon, and I just could see the book cover as it sits here. And even though this photo is from Apollo 17, and there was a lunar rover in it, which we photoshopped out, because we brought a car to the moon and drove it around, and they sit there to this present day because you couldn't bring them home. So there's just cars, multiple cars sitting on the moon. One of them has a Bible on it, by the way.
Come on.
One of the astronauts left the Bible sitting on the dashboard of the lunar rover, opened up, because he thought, if people ever come back, I want them to find a Bible sitting on the little dashboard of this car. So every time you look at the moon, just remember there's a Bible on it.
Come on.
Seriously.
That's so awesome.
But so that began the journey, and the book was one of the most challenging, unique, and rewarding experiences of my life.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
Well, everybody go buy the book.
Yeah.
Go grab it on Audible
Which it's
or
not on
Libby.
Libby. So let me just
it's
say,
not?
so request to your local library to get it.
If we ask our libraries to get The Last Supper on the Moon, it will populate in Libby.
If you can request your library to get certain audiobooks or So it's like what they have.
So would that mean that it's just not in your specific library at the moment?
Yes. So it's, if you look on, you can just go to Audible and be guaranteed to find it.
The book is there on
yes,
Audible.
Yeah.
and all other
Whatever
places.
Bismarck library you're going to, they need to get on it.
They
but,
do.
yeah.
They
Coming
really do.
soon to the Bismarck Public Library.
Come on
If you
now.
work there, just make it happen.
Right.
Not these remarks are not sponsored or endorsed by the public library.
Yeah.
Right.
Bismarck Public Library has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I think Jenaye mentioned this earlier today in one of our conversations, but one of the, like when we told people you were coming and even in having this conversation, probably like the number one inquiry or question or thing that has resonated, I know it's a huge part of your story, but is Lenya's story and Through the Eyes of a Lion. And maybe there's some people listening who don't know it. There's some people who are listening who definitely are familiar, know, and we're doing a midweek service tonight with Levi preaching and people, they've attached to that, either because they experienced something similar or it's just compelling, to hear you talk about it. And so would you share a little bit just of Lenya's story and even how the book came out of it? And
Well, you guys are parents, you get it. It's a messy, hard, wonderful, beautiful honor to get to be a dad and a mom. And so Jenny and I were going to get 5 years under our belt as a married couple before we had kids. That was our plan. Look, we don't want to have all those kids running around. We want to have 5 years just we always said like leave on a whim, like we're going to, Denver for a weekend, like just hop on a plane or drive. And we just had this romantic idea of us being together. She was a waitress. I was an assistant youth pastor. And then we got married and we got pregnant first year. It was immediately out the gate, right? So God had a plan, and we began having kids. When we started Fresh Life, which was 15 plus years ago, we did not know it, but we were pregnant with another child, our second child, Lenya, who you're referencing. She was our second daughter born. She would be 15 right now, which is hard to believe.
And was it her birthday recently?
Yes. September 8th is her birthday. So 987 is her birthday, which is kind of fun. So she would be 15, but when she was 5, she had an asthma attack 5 days before Christmas and goes home to be with Jesus. And is, of course, any person thinking about such a thing, the death of a child, it's unimaginable. You can't physically imagine it. It's so hard. But then when you experience it, it's like, having your heart, cut out and put on the table in front of you, but you're still alive. It's like a death that you endure.
Yeah.
And yet the hope that we have in Jesus as an anchor for our soul, held and holds, to this present moment. Even speaking about her, I know the pain is real, and I'm not ignoring or in denial about that. I know she's buried in Montana, but I also know she's in heaven. I know those are both true.
Yeah.
So the power that God unleashed in our lives as we leaned into that hope and the way that Jesus' words in the Beatitudes rang true.
Yeah.
That God is near to the brokenhearted. We felt that. We feel that. And so I wrote a book called Through the Eyes of a Lion, telling her story and telling the story of whoever's reading it about their pain turning into power.
Wow.
Whether it's chemotherapy or, I just got a letter that broke my heart of a little girl whose dad died, and her mom, bought her. She's reading the book, because there's a kid's book now.
Yeah, Roar Like a Lion.
Roar Like a Lion.
Yeah.
So she's reading this, and she writes me a letter. It's just like those sorts of things make it so rewarding because we receive comfort, and now is helping other people, and that helps us too, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. What would you say to someone walking through loss or disappointment? How do you not turn to God and say, God, I'm disappointed in you. God, I'm like so mad at you right now.
Or just walk away.
Or just walk away and say, God, I think of like we sing Firm Foundation here, and it's like you won't fail over and over and over. And how can you sing something like that? How can you proclaim that? Yeah, when you have lost someone so dear to you.
Oh, first of all, that song is beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
It's a great song. If I was speaking to someone, which I know I am, because you guys have endured loss and will, no one gets off this planet unbloodied. We all deal with loss. So I would say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry it's horrible and horrible and hard and challenging and messy. But at the same time, you know, I wouldn't try and discourage you from telling God you're disappointed. In fact, I would probably encourage it. You know, why would we not tell God, I'm disappointed, I'm confused, I'm angry, I'm horrified? I found in my lowest moments when I would tell God, I'm enraged, I found he didn't scold me, he didn't chastise me, he didn't try and tell me I shouldn't feel that way.
Yep.
In fact, just the opposite. When I told God, I'm angry, and I can tell you, I can picture specific moments where I was angry, so angry I could die. And God said to me, I am too. And that was enough. Because I wasn't alone in my anger. And then I realized my anger wasn't at him.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad at him. And he wasn't mad at me.
Yep.
We were both mad at the same thing.
Yeah.
Death, the enemy, sin. Those are the things that brought about my daughter's death, not God, though he had to permit it, of course, in his sovereignty.
Yeah. Yep.
Could have stopped it. Wish he would have, for the record. However, I believe when I get to heaven and see what he sees and know what he knows, I will look back and say, you did all things well.
Wow.
So today I look through a glass dimly and I say, I'm mad, you're mad, we're both mad, but you're working it all out. So I'm just going to worship you.
Yeah.
Because a God that fits in my mind is too small for my problems. So there better be some over my head stuff. There better, I really am glad the president has a briefcase that has a combination that only he knows. Like,
Right.
I want to know there's someone who has nuclear launch codes, you know?
Yep.
I don't know what Cuba's up to and the real deal with North Korea. And all. Like, I'm like, well, that's what my taxes are for. And with God, it's like, hey, you can take the reins of the universe and I'm just going to trust you.
Right.
So
I love that. Yeah, God can handle your emotions. And he's with you.
And you don't need to like put Germex on your prayer life, you know? Like, oh Lord, you're so lovely. It's like, that's true. But it's like also you can say, God, I am confused and let down and I feel like I've been betrayed.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be here with you until such time as you see to tell me what's next.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I've been trying to like put into words, even this last year, just learning like, and I've used these words a lot with Jenaye, and at times she'll be like, what do you mean? Like, where are you trying to go? But just realizing like our glory and our suffering are so interconnected, you know, and realizing like in the world, we just want glory and to experience good things and success. But so often, like in Jesus' suffering, there was
his
glory, you know, and for us that too, you know, and just trying to figure that out sometimes of like, man, how do I take this pot of both my glory and my suffering are in it? And even the things that I find glory for on the earth that like I'm good at or people praise me for or tell me I'm successful for, they're attached to my suffering, you know? And I just feel like
it's beautiful.
Somehow as I've just seen your life from afar, it's like out of that suffering, you know, which I can tell like it's still present day suffering. Like you'll never move on fully.
You don't
from the
stop being a
loss.
dad, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about Jenaye is I knew that she would come on this podcast and she would know Lenya's name. She would know when her birthday had been, because what she's taught me is when people have suffered loss, don't pretend that the person they lost never existed.
Totally.
Like know their name, you know, like talk about it, you know. But how have you seen that happen in your life that like since that most tragic day that God has taken that suffering and actually used it for his glory and for your glory?
Yeah, you know, that's so well put. I love that. The glory and the suffering in the same pot. Yeah, you know, it's not to be despised. No one would choose suffering.
Right.
You know, it's like, hey, do you want to go to dinner or have me punch you in the eye? It's like, well, I'd love that. I'd love a good black eye. It's like, what? Of course. But if we're honest, as we look back on our lives, the times of growth and breakthrough and, you know, where we punched through barriers and made it to the next wall level, those were never like wonderful times. It was, you know, you get born in blood. You get, you know, and so I think it's like when we're born into the next level, when we evolve in those ways into Christ, you know, when we receive new revelation, it's usually desert times. It's usually like what's that quote? Many men owe the grandeur of their lives to the tremendous suffering they endure. And A.W. Tozer said the same thing. He said, "Those who God loves the most, He treats the worst." In some way, somehow, it's doubtful whether we could truly be used spectacularly until we've suffered deeply. And so I think John the Baptist, greatest man ever born, loses his head.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like it's a double-edged sword, because while of course we want to avoid it and make good decisions, we also can trust that if we're led through pits, it's for a purpose.
Yeah.
So it gives us, I don't know, grieving is so disempowering. You wake up like, I can't do anything about this. It's terrible. That to have some agency given back to you and to realize I'm not disempowered in this. I'm empowered actually to be anointed in my pain. That's crushing is, how do you get olive oil? You crush olives. So if I'm suffering, God's creating olive oil to anoint me for the next level. Now I can have a little bit of like control as much as you can in anything.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's good.
What?
That was just profound, like having agency in places where you feel powerless or like you can't do anything.
The devil just wants to make you feel like you just have to sit there and suffer. It's like, no. I can't actually rise up and choose to worship. And it's an act of defiance. And what Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis said, speaking on behalf of the evil demon uncle, our cause is most in jeopardy when a human looks out on the universe and sees no trace of God's kindness, but still obeys him.
Wow.
He says that's when we're screwed.
Yeah.
Because he wants us to be fair weather friends. I'm going to be a Broncos fan as long as, well, not anymore. Now I'm back to the Seahawks, because last night, right? Yeah. So as soon as we say, God, I'm on Team Jesus, you kill me, I'll follow you like Job. That's when the enemy's like, dang it. Because he wants us only being a Christian when the tide's up.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so encouraging. We've watched, there's a woman in our church who tragically lost her husband last summer. And it's been a joy to watch her, persevere through that pain and find her purpose, and even just acknowledge, I'm going to acknowledge that season of my life is done, but I'm going to move on and I'm going to move forward and press forward for what God has for me. And just it's been a joy to watch that, and it really ministers to others. And I just think you and your wife have just leveraged your pain to help others and point them to Jesus. And that's so encouraging for anything you walk through, to know, the crushing is anointing you in your pain.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's what, even when I got to meet you last year and just sat down for a little bit over a lunch, I was like, man, there's
tent in Missouri,
in a tent in
by
Missouri.
a pit.
Is
while
this
people
when you
were
guys were
shooting
shooting
blowing
guns?
up dynamite.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the most man thing ever.
Which I will say, the man knows how to handle a rifle.
Oh, thank you.
Because you popped it right out of the sky.
I think I did get that ski.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, that's my brother from Montana.
Come on now.
Right there.
Yeah. Rich was fumbling around. No,
Yeah. Everybody was ducking when Tim was shooting.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was great.
Tim shot the cordite though. He's the one who shot that.
Oh yeah,
that explosion.
If you don't know what that is, it's like
boom.
Yeah, he hit it and you saw it explode, and then all of a sudden
felt that wave.
You felt it. Yeah.
Serious? Wow.
But I think that's one of the things that I like immediately felt drawn to and like loved about you is there's such deep water like in your soul, and it comes out when you teach. When you preach, it comes out when you write.
Just talk. I feel like I've learned so much just from you talking.
Yeah, and I feel like people compromise that. Like they don't realize the inner crushing that goes into that anointing or that depth, that you carry. Yes. And man, just appreciate that you've taken that suffering and carried it, stewarded actually,
Thank you.
Into something that really is bringing Jesus glory and helping people. But I do want to ask you, I have like two more questions that have just been on my mind for this moment, and they're heavier. So I'm sorry if this feels heavy.
Heavier from where we've been?
They're still in the same tone. But
so now we've got through the formalities. We're going to go into the stuff,
I feel like we've had conversations about the state of people right now, and Jenaye has said to me, I don't know where, maybe you heard it, and if I'm misspeaking, tell me, but kind of like we all went through 2020 and 2021.
And
then
John Eldridge.
Yeah, and then the world kind of went back to normal, and everybody tried to go back to normal, but you look at like anxiety in people's life and suicide and what's happening with the next generation, and it's like things aren't normal.
Yeah.
Well,
you
we've
know?
just moved on, and we're all pretending that we're back to normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're moved on. Okay, here we go.
Taking every trip we can. We're
We're
exactly.
good because everything's back to
Yeah.
normal. But how is that impacting us? And have we grieved what we lost in that time of the pandemic? And how is it impacting our culture and our world and people in our churches today? Sorry, I interjected
Well, I'm
on
just
what you were
thinking,
saying.
like, I think you have some authority on this topic. I think you have a book kind of that riffs into.
I Declare War. You talking about?
I don't know. Yeah, if
Yeah.
that kind of goes into the same thing, but
Yeah, I Declare War, I released in 18.
Yeah.
And back then, I mean, I was talking about, there's a whole thing in there about we are the robots now. Like basically the Instagram is selling our eyeballs to the advertisers.
yeah,
You know, you don't pay for Instagram, therefore you're not the customer.
Yeah,
That's a
right,
trippy
right.
thought. We
Yeah.
are not the customers of Instagram.
Yeah.
We are the product
Yeah.
being sold, our attention, and they curate it carefully. So to realize that, like, I can't be a customer if I give no money. So someone's a customer of Instagram, and it's every advertiser.
Yes.
So back then, I feel like there was already a movement towards automating our own behavior and just being careful about like the toll of that. And I feel like there was lots of voices. Cal Newport and many others were sounding the alarm. You know, the iPhone only came out in 2007. Okay.
Yeah.
So this experiment of we all carry the entire power of the internet in our pocket is a relatively new phenomenon for all of human history. And in our lifetime, we've gone from, you know, no internet to massively fast internet to widely available internet. Thank you, Elon Musk, even in rural parts of the country.
Right.
And so that's tectonic. That's shifting plates. That's a big deal. And now we're talking about neuro links
Yeah.
and putting things in our brain that can auto Google while you're walking. I mean,
Yeah.
just this massive
Seriously.
sociological experiment is obviously proving disastrous. Social media, very bad for you. The phone, clearly plenty of advantages, but devastating to have.
Right.
And so the bill is starting to come. You know, when you go out and spend on credit card, there's a gap. So give from 2007 to 2022 that time, and what we're seeing is, of course, a growing godlessness. People are turning away from
Yep.
faith, turning away from church, turning away from the family.
Yeah.
We're in an absolute crisis of men. Less graduating college, less getting married, less feeling confident. You know, there's so many things now. Everyone's got the internet. There's rage. No one wants to work. Everyone's medicated on drugs, and so it's we're seeing the results. Everyone's like, why is there anxiety and suicide? Because of the way that we're living and the things that are eroding.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. So how are you equipping people? Because I know you're a pastor. Not only are you speaking places and writing, and you know you have a national presence, but
Yeah.
you're pastoring people. And
Sure.
so how are you equipping right now people to
Well-
walk through that or to win that back?
You know, I don't feel any sense of like, I'm pointing to the problem, obviously, right? So I'm trying to live out of the answer. So
Yeah.
for me, practically speaking, I can't take people to a place I haven't been. So I'm fighting really hard to take my soul back, to make sure that I have healthy margins, you know, that I'm, practicing time away from devices and
Yeah.
limiting social media and having, you know, days to replenish myself without self-service and time in the word and, you know, time in worship and all those things. So I think when we have those things in place, we feel better.
Yeah.
We feel more ourselves. We feel, you know, Jesus said, what does it profit for a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? But think about this. What's the web called? The World Wide Web. What does it profit a man to gain the World Wide Web but lose his own soul?
Wow.
I felt like I was losing my soul at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
Literally felt like,
Yeah.
you know, not my soul going to hell. I
Right,
mean it
right.
in the sense of losing touch with myself.
Yes.
And I think to all those, the frenetic activity, the lack of margin, and then the constant compulsive validation, insecurity cycle loop, and then the whole dopamine chasing
Yep.
that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's the same as heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have proven, in fact, they even like, we've all seen the documentaries. They've proven that the same center of your brain lights up with a slot machine, a scratcher, a hit of heroin, and your iPhone notifying you that it's now time to check because someone liked something
Right.
you
Right.
posted.
Seriously.
And you can be real as real as you want to be. That's giving you the same thing. Okay, so we're there's an addiction that's being fed.
Right.
So getting healthy there, pushing our church towards those things would be things that I'm trying to do.
Right.
So good.
I love that you said you're leading out of the solution. You're leading it with your life, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I got my daughter a dumb phone, by the way. Yeah.
What dumb phone is it?
My 12-year-old daughter, I got her. We wanted her to have a phone because she went to her first
Yes.
youth conference that we put on this summer. And I was like, I can't text her. I can't call her. I don't like this feeling. And so I was like, we're getting her a phone, but we didn't want to get her an iPhone.
Yeah.
So we got her a Nokia phone that has Snake on it. Like
Yeah.
they did back in the
come
day.
on.
Oh my
We can
word!
call, we can text, but she's had to do, JKL.
Yeah.
She's had to learn all that. So
That's
you
amazing.
can call and text her on it, but no
Yeah.
internet. So.
That's
Yes.
so good.
And I want
There's
to.
I think
I
there's
put a
going to be
SIM
a
card in
movement.
a dumb phone for me
Yes.
on like
Yeah.
Sabbath day.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, I
There's
think
like a movement back to that, I think.
There is, and I love that. Like, there's a girl on our women's ministry team who has the light phone is an option. I mean, it is literally looks like a little Kindle, and she uses that. She'll kind of go back and forth as needed. We actually had an interesting lesson with our 6-year-old. He keeps asking for a phone. I mean, at 6.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are you seeing this? You know, and
This thing called the internet.
right.
right.
Well, yeah, and his friends.
Yeah.
Like he has like, oh, so and so has it already. You know.
Yeah.
At 6. Shocking.
Yeah, so- right. And Josh has this old broken iPhone that is like a toy in the toy bin or whatever.
Well,
and
it's like handing your child a fully loaded weapon.
yeah.
You know.
It's just like cracked and whatever. And they had it and he wanted to bring it for show and tell. And I'm like, oh, it's dead. Yeah, sure. And then he got in the car after school and he's like, yeah, Mom, I lost that phone. I don't know where it went. And I was like, oh, crud. I bet you could plug that in. And it would have like all of Josh's like info on it.
My whole life.
It was like a little bit of a panic moment, but it was a great learning lesson because we eventually found it. But there's kind of this
passcode though.
I think
right?
that a passcode on it, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, who knows? Who knows what people could do now?
All
but
you
it was
guys
a
is
great
steamy text from your
Yeah.
very active
Right,
sex
yeah,
life. Yes.
Oh gosh,
You started it.
I did. Well, I'm not ashamed. I mean, it's pretty. Sorry. But it was a great learning lesson for him. And on the way back, I mean, he felt so bad. And he was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. Because I was like, man, this is pretty serious if someone finds this and it has Dad's information, you know. And so then when we found it, he was so relieved. And I said, Avery, do you understand now why this is just far too much of a responsibility? And we've talked about it as a responsibility. Like it is something that you have to take a responsibility for and steward, and not just the device, but if one day or when one day you will, and just bridging that conversation of already talking about stewarding. One day Josh wanted to get McDonald's and Avery said, Dad, is that good stewardship?
Wow.
We're living life on a budget.
Oh, I thought you were
Just-
saying like stewardship of your health.
No,
I thought it was the hot take
well,
of
that
like
too.
McDonald's isn't good for you.
Yeah, well, that too. We talk that too.
Your kid's like, Dad, there's a lot of saturated fat in that Big Mac.
Yeah,
you know?
do you know MSG stuff?
Stewardship of your money.
yes,
Well, and
yes.
both.
Dude,
but
you have a 6-year-old who's aware of stewardship financially. You guys are doing something right.
Well,
FYI.
we're big
Little Dave Ramsey back
fan.
there.
We are.
He helped us out.
When he was
in a
2, he
big
called
way.
him Graham Rosie. He couldn't even get his name right.
No,
Oh
we
my
called him-
gosh.
So funny.
Gazelle intense.
Yeah, very intense. But I think for those of you who are interested in that, there's things like the light phone, there's the Gab phone. If you are on social media, there's Wait Until 8th is a great movement. Parents waiting at least till the 8th grade to give their kids a phone. There's some really great resources where you can learn and find community who agrees with let's wait until we give these kids access to literally anything they want to search or find because their brains are not ready for it.
Yeah.
Man, our brains aren't even ready for it.
Heck no.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, soapbox. You can't forget the original question.
I know. I'm coming to it.
Okay,
Oh,
Because-
hero.
I'm just
and
saying.
I really want to know because I think every pastor needs a pastor, and I want to know who you look
Does
up
my
to.
pastor have
like-
to be alive? Does this person
no,
have to be a
just
living?
who's your role model? You can have multiple.
Yeah.
I have
but
so many.
Who do you look up to?
Ooh, well, my wife, I for sure look up to.
Mm-hmm.
She's the kindest person that I know. She's so aware of other people. I love her very much. My dad is a great man, great friend. We talk all the time.
That's amazing.
He's a good man. Then I would say, like within different categories, Louis Giglio has been for sure a role model for me, and
Yeah.
integrity, love of Jesus, living for the glory of God. My friend Stephen Furtick, just watching him be himself and write his songs and lead how he leads and preach how he preaches, it's magnificent. You know, it's like watching a duck swim or a sea otter play with something, right? He's like, it's like, man, it's so unique and different, and I'm not that, but I love that. And then I would say, like, from history, we mentioned my man crush, Teddy. Love him. And then, lots of different weird little categories.
Yeah.
Pastor Craig Groeschel,
Yeah.
freak of a leader, the most
Right.
disciplined person that I know.
Seriously.
Lots of people, like, in different ways that I would, like, say I want to emulate or look up to and be like, so.
I think I texted you when I got to meet Louis Giglio because he was at the conference where I met you the following year, and I listened to him preach, and then I got to meet him, and he had such a profound impact on me from the way he speaks and talks about God and about Jesus and, like, reveals the gospel to people, that literally he came up and walked up and, like, extended his hand, and I was like, I had no words. It's like one of those people that you meet and you just have so much respect for that I think I literally just said, "Hey, Louis, I'm Josh, and I just appreciate you." And I was like, I'm not going to say anything stupid.
That's pretty good, but he's so unassuming too. Like, he's so chill. Like,
And
he
was.
belongs on Mount Rushmore, in my mind, but he is just so, like, down to earth, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
he doesn't carry himself with a big air of, like,
Right.
I'm Louis Giglio.
Right.
He's very fun.
Yeah.
Those are the best people
cool.
to be around.
So cool.
Well, thank you so much.
Did you pee a
Levi.
little? Because
Oh my
I think that's probably a normal
I thought
reaction. Just a little pee.
I seriously, I don't get, like, really starstruck, but it was like,
100%.
yeah. I think also when somebody, like, speaks
You're like,
and they knock
laminin.
you between the eyes.
Laminin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Did your laminin tattoo? Did you show it? Did you, like, pull up your sleeve? So
That
you
was
see
the
your
big thing that, like,
laminin tat?
put him on everybody's radar, wasn't it?
100%,
There's a YouTube
yeah.
video, and
Yeah.
yeah.
How great is our God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
Indescribable. Yeah.
Maybe one of the greater compliments that we ever got is from I mean that a little facetiously, but when we had our sound system installed, the guys who installed our sound system also did Passion City.
Oh, hey.
And they said we had the second best coffee in any
Here.
church they'd
This
ever
is
been in.
really good.
And they said it was second only to Louis Giglio's church. And I said,
Do
that's
they
a
do
second
coffee?
place.
That's a great
Do
second.
they do coffee
I
at
don't
Louis
know.
Church?
I don't
I've
know.
never had coffee at Louis Church.
Maybe they're hiding it.
Maybe they're lying.
Yeah, it's there.
They have
somewhere.
like a little espresso machine in the green room, but, like, I don't think they do church coffee.
Oh, well, I don't know
Elevation
what
doesn't
they
do it
were
either.
talking
You know
about.
why? He didn't want it to be a coffee church. Coffee church means people stand there with coffee and singing instead of actually, like, praising.
Yeah.
And Pastor Steve was like, I do not want to see people sipping their lattes when we're singing.
It's
under the
actually a
altar.
legit issue. That's like a legit
So
issue.
he's like, no coffee allowed. So you get it in the volunteer lounge, but no coffee in the
Wow.
lounge, which is
I love hearing things like that, like preferences and the why behind people's
why.
decisions. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, ours are really for the really
coffee's good though. Is
sleep-deprived
the moral of the
moms.
story, and it's getting better as it cools.
That's a good thing.
It's a good sign. If coffee tastes better as it gets colder, it's really good coffee. If it tastes worse as it gets colder, it's not good.
Not good
That's
coffee.
very interesting.
Levi, I know you've had a crazy schedule, so sincerely thank you for being here. Thank you for
Yes.
taking time to do a podcast. I know people are going to find, like, a ton of value in it.
Awesome.
So thank you for taking your life and putting it on paper. And so everybody, seriously, just look him up, buy all the books on Amazon. We've talked about a few of them.
Rent them on Libby.
Rent them on Libby. They have a great podcast, you and Jenny.
They have a podcast on Libby?
No, you have a
No.
podcast.
We do have a podcast.
Hey, it's the Luskos, right?
It's Celesco.
How do you say it?
Is
Hey,
that how you say it?
is that how you
Well,
say
there's an exclamation mark after hey.
Okay.
So it's hey, it's Luskos.
Luskos.
Well, we'll say hey, it's Luskos.
And it's
love
way
it? They are funny people.
spirited, funny.
You guys are funny.
We should be put out of our misery, is what we
You
should.
You
should
just
check
tell you're
it out.
fun people. You're like a fun couple.
We're having fun. This is fun. It's just
Yeah.
great to have conversation. I think a forum for ridiculousness.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of what I like about it, which I'm sure is the appeal for everyone listening for this podcast is, people who you hear preaching to just hear them talking, just not that sermons
Yes.
are without honesty and vulnerability, but you're also communicating truth. So it's a different thing
yeah.
than just cutting up and talking about getting into a sauna or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So check that out. And man, thanks so much.
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Very grateful you're here.
All the things, subscribe.
Like, subscribe, do whatever
All
you're
the
supposed to
things,
do
share it
that we
with your
tell you
friend.
every episode.
I think if someone came to mind during the conversation, share it with them. Allow
Yeah.
the conversation to bless them and encourage them too. So we're only here for you. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, we
love you guys.